Welcome back to another episode of Coinscrum Markets. I'm Teana Baker-Taylor, and it's a pleasure today to be rejoined again by Prabhakar Reddy, co-founder of FalconX. Prabhakar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Teana. Really
it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
So for anyone who might have missed the last time you were on, can you just give me a really brief intro about yourself and tell us a little bit more about what FalconX does and the role that it plays in the market?
Sure thing, happy to do so. So I'm Prabhakar, I'm the co-founder of FalconX. FalconX is a digital asset trading platform for institutional investors that delivers trading, credit, and clearing solutions in a seamless one-stop shop format. FalconX is also backed by industry leaders such as Accel, Lightspeed, Fidelity, Coinbase, and American Express. We're based out of the Bay Area, as well as we have a team in India and Malta.
Fantastic. Great credentials there.
Yeah.
So given FalconX's position in the market, you have some great visibility over the changing behaviors and the market personas amongst the participants. And I think perhaps you're a little bit more able to move insights beyond being just anecdotal. So let's start by looking at some of the market trends you've identified over the past week or two. What's been going on with mining revenue?
Yeah. So if you've noticed, last week was an all-time high for miners in terms of the revenue they made, more than 2017 December peak mania that was. So I think miners hit about $350 million in revenue last week. And it's just overall, if you look at it, Jan and Feb have been phenomenal months for crypto miners. And this is good. And if you really need to understand why this is happening, we have to look at the Bitcoin price action, which is we're in a bull market, to the hash rate that's for Bitcoin, right? So you've seen the last few weeks about a 65 to 70% increase in Bitcoin price versus a 15% increase in the hash rate. So increasing prices, low hash rate, which means miners are just making a killing in between. So our miner clients, they've been reinvesting their profits back into the business to keep scaling their hash rate. It's a great time to be in the mining business right now in the bull market.
Yeah, well, it hasn't always been. Miners feel the market, I think sometimes certainly equally, maybe more so than investors. So it's good to see them being rewarded for some of those lean months we had. So we saw some pretty major and quite sophisticated exploits from DeFi platforms over the last couple of weeks. Alpha Finance, Wi-Fi, Cream were all recently exploited. What impact has that had on the market overall?
Yeah. So we've seen about, I think, $50 million worth of exploits just happened in the past week, right? And if you look at it overall, we've seen about $150 million worth of DeFi hacks till date, and $50 million just happened in the last week, right? Yeah. We had the Wi-Fi DAI Vault, about $11 million. We've had the Alpha Homura and Cream V2 one, which is about $38 million. But the interesting thing is most of them were quick to remediate the attack vector and they were able to resolve these issues. So that's the interesting part that's happening. Like the market's bouncing back very rapidly from these DeFi exploits these days.
Yeah, but these exploits continue to happen though, right? So what does this mean for the technology in the long run, do you think? How do we get past this, what feels kind of like ingrained risk?
Yeah, good question, Teana. So if you take a step back, you have to understand that most of crypto, like 99% of it, except for Bitcoin, is still in its early experimental stages, right? We're in the 100%. Very early.
Yeah.
And DeFi, even more so, right? We're in the infancy stage. All of DeFi is just starting off. And any revolutionary game-changing tech, there is billions of dollars flowing through it, real money flowing through it, will suffer exploits, right? Especially the pace at which we're moving. If you look at exchanges in the early days and look at them now, there's just been tremendous improvements in terms of the number of hacks that have been going on and everything, right? However, what's important to note is relative to the DeFi market cap, which I think DeFi market cap is about $65 billion, and the total value locked in that is, I think, around $40 billion. And like I mentioned, the overall dollars exploited or hacked is about $150 million so far, right? So the loss ratio is less than 0.5%, which is a very small ratio. Now, these exploits, however, will continue to happen in the near future. And the only thing we can do is basically have founders who are starting DeFi projects slightly change their mentality from, moving fast and breaking things mantra to being a little bit more diligent, thorough, and thoughtful, right? You have to start using decentralized insurance platforms to protect against the downside scenarios, because this will continue happening. You have to think about certified smart contract audits, before launching. certain small precautions we can take as an industry, and I hope we start moving in that direction overall.
Yeah, at least instilling some best practice, right? And learning as we go, but actually learning and taking some of these breaches as a learning experience and preventing the same things from repeating, I think would be helpful. We've seen a strong bounce back in DeFi assets in general. What stood out to you in the past week?
In the last week, I would say oracles have made a huge bounce back, Teana. So if you look at Graph, API3, Chainlink, these have actually we've seen a huge resurgence in the price action and activity in the last 7 days. We also saw Wi-Fi bounce back. Despite its hack, it bounced back fairly rapidly from I think less than 30K to over 50K in a span of the last week.
Yeah, that was interesting. So do you think that the market's just quickly shaken off that Wi-Fi exploit and just moving on?
If you look at the price action, I think after the news came out of the Wi-Fi exploit, I think the price dropped only about 10% and then quickly bounced back after the team, sort of addressed the issue. So it's just phenomenal to show, how much the community has trust in Wi-Fi to be able to just overcome these kind of issues, right? And I think Wi-Fi also did a very good job of, taking the community approval for increasing the supply and just making the hack whole. So I think this was addressed in a very elegant manner by Wi-Fi, and I think that just reflects in the price action for them too.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's switch focus a little bit and take a look at some trends from the trading desk. So looking at trading activity across the breadth of trading profiles and personas that use FalconX's platform, what differences are we seeing? So maybe, client personas like hedge funds or, your retail aggregators.
That's right. So if you look at the last 12 hours, hedge funds, we've seen as a persona, they've been heavy ETH buyers, right? Just lots and lots of ETH buying activity going on with hedge funds. If you look at retail aggregators, so retail aggregators are, just platforms which have retail end users on the other side, and we interface with these aggregators. So we've seen a lot of BTC, BCH, and LTC buy-side activity going on with the retail aggregators in the last 12 hours.
Okay, that's really interesting. And what about the differences in activity by jurisdiction? Do you have any details around what's hot where?
I can see that. So, it's interesting. US and Asia have very different personas. So in the US, like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of, BTC, LTC, buy-side activity. Asia, we've sort of seen like a little bit of the sell-side activity going on BTC, LTC, and a lot more buy-side activity going on for ETH and BCH. So there are slight nuances when, US goes to sleep and Asia wakes up. A few more subtle things, like we've seen a lot more altcoin buy-side activity in the US, which is new, right? We've seen Atom and other altcoins picking up surges in USRs.
Interesting. I think what's interesting in what you just said to me too is there's some tokens that seem, popular in Asia that don't register at all in the US market, not register at all, but, not significantly. And then vice versa. There seems to be a lot more stablecoin sales, that seems like, from the US side than certainly from the Asia side.
Yeah, it's just interesting that's happening. Like, the USRs, especially the hedge funds, they're starting to see USDT, TUSD sell-side activity a lot more than the Asia side.
Okay. So outside of Bitcoin and ETH, what altcoins are getting the most attention?
So in the last week or so, I would say things like Flow by Dapper Labs. We've seen Handshake, we've seen Polkadot, we've seen Avalanche, Atom. There's a lot of interesting activity going on, and also for good reason, right? Like they've been making the waves, especially in the news circle, in terms of the product launches and all of that. So we've seen a lot of activity in these 4 or 5 altcoins in the last week.
Yeah, indeed. And I think some of these tokens, especially kind of in the alt DeFi space, like Aave or Flow, we're starting to see products actually being shipped, right? So, I know with Flow, the NBA NFTs have been super popular. So it's exciting to see some of these projects actually deliver a product, as well as have their token, perform well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's focus more on the newer institutional participants that we've seen entering the market over the past year or so. There's been a lot of activity in the last couple of weeks. Where has the growth come from, and how do their strategies compare to those that have been in the market for maybe a little longer?
Yeah, very good question, Teana. So taking a step back, if you look at, say March of 2020 to December of last year, we saw at FalconX, our non-crypto or more like crypto native institutions and their volumes reduced from like 92% to about 70%, right? Wow. So that delta has come from new non-crypto native institutions that have flooded into this ecosystem in the last few months, right? And what personas are these? They actually come in various different flavors. And some of them were surprising to us. So we've seen large traditional hedge funds, right? They've been allocating, Bitcoin to their sort of like profile as a macroeconomic hedge. Mm-hmm. Then you have 401ks and IRA providers. You have traditional enterprises, who use crypto as a B2B cross-border payment mechanism, primarily to lower the cost of transferring assets as well as the time it takes to transfer these assets, mm-hmm. which is a fascinating use case that we are seeing.
Yeah.
We're starting to see large enterprises. These are public companies, not only in the US, internationally too, right? We're seeing hospital chains and all these kind of large organizations with massive balance sheets. And the question is, should we allocate 1% or 5% of our balance sheet to Bitcoin? Just mm-hmm. fascinating how the thought process has changed in the last few months, right? We are also seeing payment gateways and international remittance companies as different personas are coming in. So, and this trend, it's not a one-off thing. It's a clear trend in our opinion, where we are seeing non-crypto native institutions actually just take over more and more share of the volumes that we are seeing at FalconX.
Yeah. Okay. So I get this question a lot. And you are in a really, uniquely well-positioned place to answer this and break this down for us a little bit more clearly. So looking across the MicroStrategies and the Teslas and their announcements and, taking on these Bitcoin balance sheet positions, it's clearly had a role in supporting the price and, positive sentiment overall. And it might not have been so obvious that these purchases were taking place when they were taking place. So how does an institution now execute orders that are over $1 billion without forcing the market too far away from them? Can you explain how that works across the market in general and, how FalconX in particular has played a role?
Yeah. So, historically, even up to like maybe say 2 or 3 years ago, Teana, it was very difficult to conduct such large transactions.
Yeah, you'd move the market and price yourself out.
Right. The market infrastructure also was not in place to actually execute such large orders. But I think we've come a very long way, especially in the last 9 to 12 months. Just within FalconX too, right? We've executed several $20 million to $100 million plus buy and sell side orders like within like a few hours. So the infrastructure has significantly improved. Depth of liquidity has also significantly improved. And overall in the market infrastructure also, has gone to a different place. Now, today, a crypto brokerage like FalconX can facilitate a $500 million, BTC buy order or sell order within a span of 2, maybe 3 days without affecting the market too much.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. While actually preserving the privacy and the compliance needed for these large institutions, taking all that into account, it'll take about 2 to 3 days. And how do we do it? So, what we focus or our specialization is in making sure that we provide a white glove service to these large institutions or enterprises that are coming in. So we work closely with them to understand their time frame requirements. What's important for them? Just filling their order, or is it price, or is it not moving the market too much? Right? Based on that, our trading team will execute algorithms like TVAPs and VWAPs to ensure that their orders go through smoothly. And we've been successful in doing so multiple times without moving the market as much.
Okay. So it sounds like it's about 250 million a day you can now move without causing too many waves?
So it depends on, I would say, the depth of the market on any given day. 2 to 5% of the order book or the overall volumes, I think we should be fine without moving the markets too much, right? Beyond that, we'll start seeing significant market activity if we place orders in one go.
Okay. That makes sense. Listen, we do have a lot of institutions, our institutional players that watch the show. So how can they learn more about the services that FalconX offers and get in touch with you personally? How do you like to communicate?
Great. So just go to falconx.io. There you can just sign up. That's one way. Two, if you want to reach out to me personally, it's pr@falconx.io. You can shoot me an email. I'm also on Twitter. You can reach me out on Twitter directly. I respond to DMs. A lot of clients just ask questions saying, hey, I'm interested in basically putting Bitcoin on my balance sheet as an enterprise. What should I do? We're happy to help you think through the strategy. Just reach out to us anytime.
Awesome. Hey, look, you and I should do a Clubhouse chat one of these days because there's a lot of people that want to understand what happens at the institutional level. So we should think about doing a Q&A because I think you have a lot of knowledge that a lot of people would be really interested to hear. So we should talk about that.
I just did one 48 hours ago. I'm happy to do one again.
Yeah. How did it go? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was great. Like it was like a marathon, it was just like people and on one just asking questions. I needed to take a break in between because it went on for an hour. Yeah. But it's great. Just so much interest in the space. So it's just phenomenal.
I know the interest is really blooming and it's so exciting to see that and be a part of it. Prabhakar, it is always such a pleasure. We need to see you more often. Thank you so much for coming back.
Absolutely, Teana. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.